All my Joy-Cons have drift. The stand has no traction. My Pro Controller has seen better days. The games have gone stale. The Nintendo Switch is a mere 2 footsteps away from its grave. And on its way is this pile of junk! Yes, a $500 drain to put my wallet down. But before that monstrosity reaches the shelves, I thought I'd put together a wish list of some of the things that I want to see come to this new console. Okay, a lot of things I want to see come to this new console. But despite those rising prices, I think there's still hope. Mario Kart World is really revolutionizing what it means to Mario Kart. And it's definitely worth the $80. But some aren't so happy about that price tag. But Donkey Kong Bonanza, on the other hand, looks pretty great. And it's $10 cheaper. Though, me and some others have been wondering, what happened to Diddy Kong? Cranky's still here though. And then there's Kirby Air Ride's long-awaited sequel, which seems to have kept Sakurai busy since Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yet with all this Nintendo Switch 2 stuff going on, one of the most interesting, yet utterly annoying things, are the Nintendo Switch 2 edition Nintendo Switch 1 games for the Nintendo Switch 2. These are games that were like $60 or $70 on the original Switch, that Nintendo is now charging $20 more for. These are old games like Breath of the Wild, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Tears of the Kingdom, but also upcoming releases like Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4. But while some of those are great options, personally, I think Nintendo can do even better and possibly charge even more! Wait, is that Yoshi's Woolly World? The first Nintendo Switch 2 edition Nintendo Switch 1 game that I think should come to Nintendo Switch 2 is Pikmin 4, which we could see as soon as Christmas 2025. Seeing anything added to this game would be great, especially some returning characters. And alongside this, Nintendo could announce Pikmin 5 having begun production, or something like that, to keep the Pikmin fans excited for the future. And with the way that Pikmin 4's production went, I think with Pikmin 5 starting production now, sooner than later, we could see it by the year 2052. Another one that they could just kind of throw in there is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, though I think they might hold out a couple years for a new title. But one that they definitely should not hold out on is Nintendo Switch Sports. They can add 4 sports, $20 upcharge, call it a day. One interesting one that I'm surprised hasn't been announced yet is WarioWare Move It. With the Nintendo Switch's camera that is really similar to the Xbox 360's Kinect, I think it is rather surprising that we haven't seen any DLC for WarioWare Move It that utilize this new technology, or the microphone. Maybe Nintendo could make a spiritual successor to WarioWare Snapped. Maybe one that's actually good? In the vein of casual microgame-filled adventures, Rhythm Heaven Groove and Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. With these two coming out in 2026, I think it is really likely that we'll see Nintendo Switch 2 versions come alongside them. But what they could add to these games is kind of uncertain right now, because we've only seen these games through the one trailer. Maybe we could even see mic support in Tomodachi Life, and with how AI has been progressing through the years, it might be a couple steps better than the AI in Hey You Pikachu. Hey. 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 It's been 2 years since Pikachu last talked to me. One game that would really benefit from an early Switch 2 release is Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training. If this looks familiar, but not as a Switch game, it's because you remember it as Brain Age on the Nintendo DS. But strangely enough, the Nintendo Switch release did not release in the United States. So I think releasing Brain Age worldwide with some more Switch 2 features could be a pretty big success, especially early at launch when people are looking for games like this. Back to more core games, Super Mario Maker 2. I mean, does Nintendo really need to create the same game a third time? They already have a pretty good base with Mario Maker 2, and maybe they can make this plural extra game modes actually make sense. It'd be great to see game styles that revisit some other 3D gems, like Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, in the way that they did for Super Mario 3D World. And maybe some more 2D games like Super Mario Land 2, or the first Super Mario Land. And of course, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. But the Nintendo Switch 2 edition Nintendo Switch 1 game for the Nintendo Switch 2 that I want more than any Nintendo Switch 2 edition Nintendo Switch 1 game for the Nintendo Switch 2 is Super Mario 3D All-Stars Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Or, what I've subtitled it, Super Mario 3D All-Stars More. So get this, for that big 40th anniversary, Nintendo sells Super Mario 3D All-Stars again, but they throw in a few more games and charge $80, or as a $30 DLC. We could see Super Mario 64 DS, Super Mario Galaxy 2, which should have been in the original, and Super Mario 3D Land. Maybe we could even see analog controls finally implemented into 64DS, and some graphics that actually look good on a screen, though I wouldn't get my hopes up for this because I'm not sure Nintendo has many 40th anniversary plans with the release of Mario Kart World, but this compilation brings me to my favorite type of games that I want to see come to the Nintendo Switch 2. Game Compilations. And boy, do I have a lot to say about that. But still on the topic of Super and Mario and All-Stars is a completely new idea. New Super Mario All-Stars. It would be amazing to see Nintendo release those games that everyone got tired of again. I think to really seal this deal as being worth $70 or $80 like Nintendo's selling games these days, we would need to see these games be spruced up, recreated in the new Super Mario Bros. U engine, but still maintain their level dynamics from the originals. Now, this is probably less likely than Super Mario 3D All-Stars More, but a man can dream. Now, imagine this. Nintendo re-releases the Star Fox games that haven't been re-released to oblivion, introducing Star Fox, the Not 64 collection. This collection would feature all the Star Fox games that are not Star Fox 64, or based on it, meaning no original Star Fox because that inspired Star Fox 64, no Star Fox 2 because that game has been re-released everywhere possible since it has been released in 2018, and no Star Fox Zero, which is also based on Star Fox 64. I'm talking Star Fox Adventure, Star Fox Assault, Star Fox Command, Star Fox Guard. I mean, some people probably liked it, and to me this seemed like a really cool idea. But now with the Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Classics, this seems less likely, because Star Fox Adventure and Star Fox Assault could be games coming in the near future to that service, and a collection of Star Fox Command and Guard is not worth much more than a penny. But with a semi-recent release of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, a remake of a Game Boy Advance game, the mini Mario-shaped hole in the Switch became ever more apparent. Remember these games? They were everywhere. And I love them. The question isn't if we'll ever see a new Mini Mario game. The question is when we will get to see the new Mini Mario game. So instead of making a whole new game, again, how about Nintendo just releases the infinite levels they already made? Well, I thought I'd help Nintendo out. Here's Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini's Endless March, featuring Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 March of the Minis, all 72 stages, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March Again, all 92 stages plus 8 bosses, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem, all 110 stages, Mario and Donkey Kong Minis on the Move, all 203 levels, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars, all 88 stages, and Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge Deluxe, which is a whole new version of Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge, now with more Amiibo compatibility to sell more toys. Also, a Pauline Amiibo will be bundled with the physical version of this game. And as a bonus, they can throw in the arcade version of Donkey Kong that saw a brief release on the Wii. I think we could kind of see a return to the theme park aesthetic seen in Miniland Mayhem. The hub world could act as a selection between the different Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, and each theme park attraction could be a different game. With there being rumors a little while back about a Kirby Robobot remake, why not make it a collection? The Kirby 3DS collection. Seeing Kirby Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot in one collection, in the vein of Kirby Return to Dreamland, would be really spectacular. And we could see the bland Kirby Quartet fully available on Nintendo Switch 2. And maybe they could even throw in some of those 3DS eShop Kirby games. Of course though, if Nintendo actually went through with a Robobot remake, I doubt they would sell it as a collection. I mean, they are not holding back on prices for the Switch 2. And if I wanted either of the two 3DS games to be ported, it'd probably be Robobot, because that's definitely the least bland of the Kirby Quartet. But while we're talking about the Switch 2, let's take a second to mention the mascot of the Switch 2 himself. Freaky Kong. This weird, not Donkey Kong looking fella. But to keep the monkey hype going, Nintendo could have the actual Donkey Kong return for a small compilation of some of the best Donkey Kong related games ever known to humankind. Donkey Konga, the Bongo King returns, bundled with the new wireless bongo controllers, and with compatibility to the original GameCube bongos. We'd see in this collection Donkey Konga, Donkey Konga 2, Donkey Konga 3 but only in the Japanese release, a new original Donkey Konga made exclusively for this release, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and Donkey Kong Bongo Blast, which is Donkey Kong Barrel Blast remade to use the DK bongos, as it was originally intended. Now, this is more of a joke release, considering that Donkey Konga would have a lot of issues in licensing. But seeing a collection with Jungle Beat and Barrel Blast, complete with bongo support, would be really cool. And maybe Nintendo could create an original Donkey Konga for such a release, but in this era of new freaky Donkey Kong, I think it would be really cool to see a return to some of those GameCube era Donkey Kong bongo games, especially considering that Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is the last Donkey Kong game that the presumed Donkey Kong Bonanza developers worked on. And Bongo Blast makes sense because Nintendo's not afraid to release a bunch of racing games on the Nintendo Switch 2. On a completely unrelated note, do you remember the year of Luigi? Do you remember the month of Luigi? What if, for the 35th anniversary of his debut in Super Mario Land 2, we saw the announcement of the Year of Wario, with the Nintendo Switch 2 shaping up to be the Wii's Wii U, but for Switch? It would be awesome to see another year dedicated to celebrating a Mario character who isn't Mario. We could see a new WarioWare game, we could see Wario Bros, Super Wario Bros, similar to the cool Luigi remixed games in 2013. We could see little Warios hidden in the next Mario game, or even a Dr. Wario. But what all Wario fans really want is Wario All-Stars, released in 2027. For the 35th anniversary of Wario, 35 years since the release of Super Mario Land 2, or a 2029 release if they want to do 35 years since the release of Wario Land, we could see Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, Wario Land II, Wario Land 3, and Wario Land 4, all bundled together in one collection, remade in the style of Wario Land Shake It, which has an excellent art style. And maybe even throw in a secret unlockable Virtual Boy Wario Land. And now with more colors than just red and black. Now that would be cool. But most of these games aren't things that people have been actively asking for. Like, no one wants Star Fox Guard to return, but with Zelda, everyone has been begging for some re-releases. But with Nintendo adding the GameCube to Nintendo Switch Online, the obvious one no longer seems to be too relevant. But here's a couple that might blow your socks off. How about some DS classics? The Legend of Zelda, The Touch Collection, featuring Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. You don't like that one? Well, how about a fan favorite and a fan hated game make a return in The Legend of Zelda, The New Hyrule Collection, pending title, featuring A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes. You don't like that one either? Maybe we forget Link, we forget the Triforce, we even forget Zelda. And maybe we could get what we really need most. A game centering around the titular character that hasn't been mentioned by Nintendo in years. The return of the creepy 35-year-old man himself, Tingle. With Wind Waker coming to GameCube Classics, I think we need to see the Tingle is Back collection, featuring all 4 of Tingle's adventures: Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land, Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love, Tingle's Balloon Fight DS, and the Too Much Tingle collection. Of course you can't forget the Too Much Tingle pack. How else am I going to use my Tingle-themed calculator? I mean, Tingle got so much hate by Western audiences that the United States hasn't seen a single one of these Tingle games, and I think it's finally time to let these masterpieces be seen worldwide. But while all of these games are options, and some are better than others, they are still, at their core, just options. And none of them have really been new Nintendo Switch 2 releases. So let's move on to some original games in order of how I think they should come to Nintendo Switch 2. Starting off with a remaster, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes Remastered, coming out this year, sometime before Metroid Prime 4. I think it could be shadow dropped during a 2025 Direct, the month before Metroid Prime 4, sometime this summer. And of course, we'll see Metroid Prime 3 eventually on Switch, but maybe after the release of this remastered game. Then, sometime in spring 2026, I think we will see the next 3D Mario, aptly named Super Mario. That's it, just Super Mario. It will be a universal exploration through time and space, announced during the Mario 40th Anniversary Direct this September in 2025. Instead of being a complete open world, Nintendo returns to the open sandbox approach of Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Sword of Odyssey, and mixed in we will see some more linear missions, as seen in Mario Galaxy. This game will act as a celebration of all of Mario's past. Each world could feature a different mechanic or power-up, either completely original or from the past. Instead of the worlds being split into traditional Mario generic biomes, all of the designs are based on something from Mario's past, with the exception of 2 or so worlds. The worlds are represented as universes, both separate universes than the ones seen in Mario World, familiar past worlds, and beyond. For the past world representation, we could have some 2D worlds made completely fresh in full 3D, and some 3D worlds reinterpreted in a new, more open style. Next, on a completely different note, are the Pokemon Black and White remakes, which I think we could see as soon as November 2026. These games would not be like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Not in the slightest. Their art style would feature a mix of the Let's Go game, Omega Ruby, and Alpha Sapphires, and they would expand on the original game's mechanics similar to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphires and Heart Gold Soul Silver. The story would only include the original Pokemon Black and White, but Black 2 and White 2 would be released as $40 DLC expansions in 2027, and they will be accessible through a menu on the main screen. Another release that I'm really looking forward to is Splatoon 4, coming Christmas 2026. It's Splatoon 3 again, but with new guns and new maps. So basically the same exact thing as the last 3 games. Gee, do I love Splatoon. Guess what other Nintendo IP I think should return for the Nintendo Switch 2? ARMS 2. It's ARMS again, but this time there is a larger main campaign and additional stuff to do, making it actually have replayability. Then, very soon after, The Legend of Zelda: Mirror of Dreams. An open world Zelda, but now much more streamlined. It will feature much more linear gameplay than Breath of the Wild and Tears, and it takes place several millennia before Ocarina of Time, but after Minish Cap and Four Swords. The art design is more in line with Twilight Princess than Skyward Swords and Breath, but when compared to Twilight Princess, the characters and surroundings are much more vibrant and interesting, taking after Wind Waker in that sense. The overworld would have a colorful sort of Minish Cap vibe with bright surroundings, but the towns are seemingly full and bustling, in line with Majora's Mask. You'd be guided through the game by a seagull. Yeah, a seagull. It would feature a tool renting system similar to A Link Between Worlds, allowing for more choice in the order by which the player tackles the more traditional Zelda dungeons. The necessary alternate world would take place in a dream world that is constantly morphing and changing. Additionally, the things you see in the real world can influence the dream world, but there are also world-bending powers unlockable in the dream world. These powers are limited to the lucidity meter, and more power is unlocked by leveling it up. While in the dream world, the seagull turns into what is seemingly a replica of Zelda, and fights alongside you, helping with puzzles that involve 2 people. The seagull's name is Marin, which is a reference. And with a Link's Awakening remake on the mind, how about The Legend of Zelda: Oracles of Legend? We see the Legend of Zelda Oracle trilogy fully realized, basically a Link's Awakening styled remake, but completely change the game. Of course, they keep intact the adventure in Holodrum and Labyrinthia, but they would add a final, shorter adventure in Hyrule. The order of the first two kingdoms will still be up to the player, but once one of the worlds are completed, they can return to the other one as often as they want, via the Triforce in Hyrule Castle. The main reason the Oracle games need a reimagining, while Link's Awakening could suffice with just a simple remake, is because they are already available on Nintendo Switch Online, and a complete remake would just be way cooler. Also, many consider the Oracle games of slightly lesser quality than Link's Awakening, so seeing them spice it up would make it more enticing, especially for the $70 to $80 price range that Nintendo would sell this for. For lore reasons, the story is pretty much maintained between the originals and this remake. Really, they would just revamp the areas based on the original design, but with more liberties taken, which is nice, considering they weren't quite up to snuff with Link's Awakening. But the Hyrule area is completely original, though highly inspired by Link to the Past, Between Worlds, and Echoes. Then, after Sakurai releases what is bound to be his magnum opus, we could see more from Kid Icarus Uprising, maybe a remake, or even possibly a sequel. And of course, the obligatory Super Smash Bros. 6, which I think is very unnecessary. And maybe if Nintendo can get a few people together and start listening to the fans, they will make a new F-Zero. And eventually we're bound to see Luigi's Mansion 4, another shot at something similar to Nintendo Switch Sports, though I have no clue what shape this would take. There is no doubting that we'll see 12 different Fire Emblem games that I don't care about, and, of course, another Xenoblade game, which I'll just call Xenoblade X2. Yeah, Xenoblade. Because with the recent re-release of X, I see no reason why Nintendo should not make a sequel. Now, moving on from physical games to online games, I think there is a lot Nintendo can do with the Nintendo Switch 2. The first thing I think should come to Nintendo Switch line is a completely free title called Super Nintendo Land. Similar to Nintendo Land on the Wii U, this will be an advertisement for all the other Nintendo games coming in the future, but with fun minigames that you can play, and take advantage of the Nintendo Switch 2's gimmicks. This will be available on the normal tier of Nintendo Switch Online. Then coming shortly after the Nintendo Switch 2's release in mid-2025 would be an update to the Super Nintendo Classics, which is the new name for the Nintendo Switch Online. We'll see two games that were previously nearly impossible for the Nintendo Switch, but now completely possible due to the mouse, are Mario Paint and Mario and Wario, a Japanese exclusive title, which was the start of Game Freak and Nintendo's now long-lasting relationship. These two titles would be a dream to see on Nintendo Switch Online. Nintendo Switch Classics, especially Mario and Wario. And maybe Nintendo could get Namco to re-release Pac-Man 2, everyone's favorite point-and-click Pac-Man adventure. Then, early 2026, we'll see on Nintendo Entertainment Nintendo Classics some light gun games, like Duck Hunt, and alongside it for the Super Nintendo, Super NES Super Scope 6, and Yoshi's Safari, the greatest Mario game where you shoot animals. Then, mid-2026, we'll see a price increase, with the base tier raising to $40 yearly and the expansion pack tier raising to $80 yearly. But to make the deal more enticing, the normal tier will receive Virtual Boy Online. It's actually cool, I promise. It's not just me, it's actually cool. With titles such as Teleroboxers, Nestor's Funky Bowling, and Virtual Boy Wario Land if we don't see Wario All-Stars anytime soon. Then, shortly after, we'll see DS Nintendo Switch Online, exclusive to the expansion pack tier, with all of your favorite DS games. Then, shortly after, a free release with Pilot Wings 35, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Pilot Wings, similar to Super Mario Bros. 35 or Tetris 99. It's crazy that it's already been 5 years since Mario's 35th anniversary, and it's been 6 years since Tetris' 99th birthday. I mean, Tetris is 105 years old. That's not what the 99 stands for, is it? Another free title, dang, I might be making Nintendo look a little too generous, would be Pushmo Adventure, a free title alongside that price increase. The base game would be in the normal tier, but the expanded DLC coming out in mid-2027 would be available for $10 or for free on the expansion pack tier. It would basically be like every other push-mo / crash mode / stretch mode game, but would now include multiplayer where you race to the top of either procedurally generated puzzles or one from a separate puzzle bank from the main game. I think if Nintendo really wants to push their online service, releasing just a couple free games would be a really nice benefit alongside the re-releases of all their classic games. Then, out of nowhere, an original IP comes with free-to-play additional online purposes. Of course, if you've kept up with Nintendo news in the last year or so, you know what this is. That weird Minecraft MMO ripoff, which I'll just call Minecrafta. This game will obviously be free to play, but with a necessary Nintendo Switch Online subscription. Overall, I think the gameplay will be rather uninteresting, similar to LEGO Fortnite, and will have tons of in-game purchases. If this game isn't free for Nintendo Switch Online, they might as well bundle in an iPad. I mean, that kind of goes with the market audience of this game. Enough said about that, because by then, GBA Online will receive an update, bringing Mother 3 to the United States, in addition to the Sonic Advance trilogy and Sonic Battle. Because unless Sega decides to release the trilogy of Sonic Advance games and Sonic Battle, I think there's no reason to keep it off GBA Online. Eventually, time will force Game Freak to release the Pokemon games on Nintendo Switch Online, seeing Pokemon Red and Blue added to the Game Boy Color Nintendo classics, and the original version of Pokemon Green, perhaps just in Japanese, but possibly translated using the Red and Blue script, or a slightly altered version, Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Gold and Silver, Pokemon Crystal, and then on the Game Boy Advance, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, Pokemon Emerald, and Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. And Nintendo and Game Freak wouldn't release all of these at once, but in waves, similar to how they did on the 3DS. Now, throughout all this time, I think Nintendo would sporadically release different GameCube games, including Mario Kart Double Dash, Super Smash Bros. Melee, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and if there's no Star Fox Not 64 collection, I think also Star Fox Adventure and Star Fox Assault. Then Mario Golf, Toadstool Tour, Mario Power Tennis, all 4 Mario Party games. And, of course, the greatest GameCube game of all time, Doshin the Giant. And maybe 5 or 4 years down the line, we could even see the original Kirby Air Ride come to Switch too. Now, in 2027 to 2028, I think we'll see another big expansion of the Nintendo Switch Online service, with Sega Master System games being added to the basic tier, with games like Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the 8-bit version, Phantasy Star, and Shinobi. And then Sega Saturn will also be added to the expansion pack tier. Also, there will be an expansion pack tier exclusive game, The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Journey. It is an original 4 Swords game in the Link's Awakening engine, but it is only about as big as the original 4 Swords. But if Nintendo doesn't want to go this original route, I could see them just re-releasing 4 Swords Adventure in HD. Or on the GameCube service would be nice too. I'm not picky. Then, later down the line, Sega Dreamcast will be added, with titles such as Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, if they're not remade by then, Crazy Taxi, Caution Seaman, and Echo the Dolphin Defender of the Future, amongst other titles. Then, by the middle of the Nintendo Switch 2's lifespan, I think we should see Rusty and the Slugger's Baseball Shop, a sequel to the hit free 3DS title, Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. It'll be a free-to-play game for the basic tier, showing the grand reopening of Rusty's Sport Shack. Now, all of that was pretty much just Nintendo's first-party releases. Now, what about third parties? Well, here's a couple from Nintendo's best third-party developers. Sega will release the Sonic Storybook HD Collection, featuring Sonic and the Secret of the Rings and Sonic and the Black Knight, remastered in HD, with optional motion controls. We will also see Bayonetta 4, and with Sega now owning Rovio, I think we could see an original Angry Birds title called Angry Birds Island Adventure. It's basically Animal Crossing, but with Angry Birds. From Capcom, I expect us to see Ace Attorney 7. It's been quite a while since Ace Attorney 6, and on the last generation of consoles, we really only saw collections and remakes. But now that all of the games, pretty much, have been re-released in these collections, I think it is time to see a 7th Ace Attorney game. Then, keeping up with the Mega Man collection series of collections, we're definitely going to see Mega Man Legends Collection, which is only made up of 2 games because there's only 2 Mega Man Legends games. But they could also throw in the spin-off sequel, The Misadventures of Trombone. Now, I'm not a big Mega Man Legends guy, but I would like to play them. Then, as a follow-up to Mega Man 11, it's possible we could see a Mega Man 12, or maybe even a Mega Man X9 as a follow-up to the Mega Man X series. From Ubisoft, I think we're going to see a return to basics for the Just Dance formula in the form of Just Dance 5, the true follow-up to the Wii success Just Dance 4. Since all the latest Just Dance games have been named after years, and Just Dance has slowly been becoming mundane and full of microtransactions and subscriptions, I think a return to form is necessary to keep the simpler designs of the dancing people. What? Also, similar to Mario plus Rabbids, I think we could see Zelda plus Rabbids, A Link to the Future. It's an action RPG, similar in quality to Final Fantasy VII Remake or Final Fantasy XV, rather than a strategy game, and Tingle plays a very important role. A Zelda and Rabbids game would be good, I promise. Now from Square Enix, I think we will eventually see Kingdom Hearts 4, which is confirmed to be in development, alongside a version of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth eventually coming to Switch. And maybe, if we do get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Switch 2, we could see the 3rd game eventually come to Switch 2 as well, and have the whole trilogy on Switch. Also, I think Final Fantasy XV will come to Switch. The real version, not the current version on Switch. And I think in store for us in the future is a Final Fantasy IX remake. With Level 5 releasing a Professor Layton game in the near future, I think we should see a Professor Layton trilogy of the original 3 DS games, eventually followed up by a trilogy of the 3 prequel games on DS and 3DS. Now here's where I jump into the It's Impossible category. For the Nintendo Switch 2, I want to see menu music. Yes, menu music. For those who don't know, menu music is a feature that all Nintendo consoles featured up until the Nintendo Switch. Depending on the menu, the music ranged from atmospheric noise to elevator music. Menus had life. Then the Switch came. And yeah, it's kinda disappointing. While you could say that Nintendo was just catching up to their competitors, this still can't even be the case, because the PS5, which released 3 years after the Switch, had menu music. So, I want menu music, but the menu that needs it the most is the Mii Maker. The Mii Maker on the Wii, 3DS, and Wii U were some of the greatest composed pieces in the history of video games. That really is all I have to say about menu music. But that isn't all I have to say about the Nintendo Switch 2 interface. With the Switch 2 bringing back features that were staples to the DSi, 3DS, and Wii U, I think some of the apps from those eras should make a return. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. The sound app, the camera app, activity log, and something like PictoChat or Flipnote. Now, you might say it's all just nostalgia talking, but I only really grew up understanding how to use the sound and camera apps, which were pretty superfluous additions, but really, they all were. The Switch 2 needs them, or something similar, because these silly additions are what made the Nintendo experience something truly special, even if you had no games for the console. I mean, the amount of hours I spent as a kid just messing around, taking photos on my 3DS, and drawing on them, or the days where I would record random noises for no reason, or the time I'd spend on Face Raiders. I may be getting a little off track. I want the Nintendo Switch 2 to include some extra features, like music and useless applications. So yeah, that's it. That is what I want from the Nintendo Switch 2. Okay, maybe I went a little overboard, creating game ideas left and right, suggesting actually good features that Nintendo could implement in the future, making a lot of games free with Nintendo Switch Online, bundling together games that Nintendo could sell individually, providing constant updates for Nintendo's retro services, providing interesting menu interfaces for the different options on the devices, and rekindling some Nintendo fun. But is all of that too much to ask for? Can't I expect a premium product to come with a premium price? Is that too much to ask for, Nintendo? Pre-orders drop soon. Sold out. This has been Ethan. Thank you for tuning in to Nintendo's Greats. Tune in next time for more on some of Nintendo's greatest hits.